The night breathes in silence, the kind of silence only broken by the whispers of those long gone. In the cold, stone walls of a forsaken castle in the Alps, something stirs, something restless, lost in time, and hungry for vengeance. It is said that Duke Alistair of Lichtenstein, a man whose name has nearly been erased from history, spent his final years consumed by the ghosts of lovers' phantoms who walk the castle halls with a presence so undeniable that even the bravest knights refuse to enter the tower at night. What happened in the cursed bedrooms of Lichtenstein Castle? What drove a once powerful duke to madness, to the point where he welcomed the visitations of those who should have never walked this earth again? Tonight, we uncover the truth behind the Duke's nightly encounters and the horror that followed. Lichtenstein Castle, isolated high above the snow-capped peaks, was once a place of splendor. The year is 1567, and Duke Alistair is the head of one of the most formidable dynasties in the Alpine region. His wealth is immeasurable, his land vast, and his power unchallenged. Yet, despite all his riches, despite his carefully curated court of noblemen and ladies, something haunts him, and no one, not even the bravest of his knights, dare enter the most dreaded place in the castle, the East Tower. It is said that Alistair's obsession with the tower began with his first wife, Lady Isabella. Her beauty was legendary, and many believed that she was touched by the divine. But there were whispers that Isabella had a secret, a curse hidden beneath her porcelain skin. Before their marriage, she had lived in a secluded manor, far from prying eyes. She had a tragic past, one that was never fully explained. The first sign of trouble came on their wedding night, as Alistair lay with his bride. Beneath the heavy, fur-lined sheets, he swore he saw something, or rather, someone standing by the window. A woman dressed in a dark gown, pale as moonlight, her hair flowing like the fog that clung to the castle cliffs. The figure vanished before he could fully wake, but not before leaving a chill in the room so profound. It clung to the bedposts. Lady Isabella dismissed it, of course, laughing it off as nothing more than a bad dream. But the Duke could not forget, and neither could the shadows that gathered in the tower. Every night, the Duke found himself returning to the East Tower, drawn to its strange allure. He would ascend the winding spiral staircase alone, even as the servants begged him not to go. For the tower was not only cursed, it was alive. The stone walls seemed to breathe, and the air turned cold, even in the summer heat. One fateful evening, Alistair discovered something that would forever change his life. As he approached the door to his wife's former chambers, something caught his eye. Faint, ghostly outline moving across the walls. He stepped forward, his heart pounding. The door creaked as it opened, revealing a room draped in shadows, but it was the mirror that caught his attention. In the reflection, there was no longer just the room, but the unmistakable figure of Lady Isabella, standing at the window, her face pale, her eyes wide in terror. But before he could move, before he could scream her name, she vanished. Alistair's grip tightened around the doorframe. What he had seen was no illusion. Isabella had returned, not in body, but in spirit. The Duke could no longer deny it. Isabella's spirit had returned, and she was not alone. For weeks after that night, Alistair saw the council of his court's wisest men. Priests were summoned, and exorcists came from across the land, but none could rid the castle of the shadows that clung to the East Tower. Each night, Alistair would hear whispers in the walls, soft, pleading voices that only he could understand. In the dead of night, he would hear them tender, seductive whispers calling him from the depths of his bedchamber. Alistair, they would say, come back to me. But these weren't just the whispers of Isabella. There was another voice, a deeper, more primal voice, one that filled the room with an air of insatiable hunger. It was not long before the Duke realized that Isabella's spirit was not the only one that haunted the castle. She had brought with her other lovers, ghostly figures who were bound to the cursed walls of Lichtenstein Castle. One by one, the lovers' identities revealed themselves in the night. Some were faces he knew, men of power who had once visited the court, knights and barons who had long since perished. Others were strangers, their forms a blur of forgotten names and faces. Each time, Alistair felt the same oppressive weight, one of longing, of guilt, of fear. He knew that the spirits were bound to him now. He could not escape their presence, nor did he want to. They whispered to him, soothed him, caressed him, offering him a chance to break free of his mortal constraints, to join them in their eternal, otherworldly embrace. But there was a price to pay. The Duke soon realized that the lovers who haunted him were not simply seeking his company, they were bound by a dark, forgotten pact. A pact made long ago, when the castle's foundations were first laid, when the ancient stones were stained with the blood of sacrificial rites. The castle was cursed. Yes, but not by the spirits of the dead alone. It was cursed by the living, by those who had made promises to dark forces they could not comprehend, a legacy of forbidden rituals passed down through the generations, binding the living and the dead in a twisted dance of desire and destruction. Alistair had unknowingly inherited the curse, the price of power and ambition that had followed his family for centuries. The spirits were not his beloveds, they were his tormentors, and they would not let him go. By now, Alistair's sanity was slipping. His nights were filled with visions of death, of drowning in a sea of ghosts. And yet, he welcomed them. He welcomed their touch, their cold, unrelenting caress. They filled the void left by Isabella's death, by the betrayals of the past, by his own regret. In the dark, twisted labyrinth of his mind, the line between reality and nightmare blurred. He would speak to them as though they were still alive, still flesh, and in a way, they were alive in a form far worse than death. One fateful night, as the Duke lay in bed, entangled in dreams and whispers, a single voice rose above the others. A woman's voice, sweet and seductive. "Alistair," she breathed, "come to me, join us." The Duke's heart raced. He had heard this voice before. It was the voice of a woman he could never forget, Isabella. But this time, there was no comfort in her words. This time, there was a promise of damnation. She wasn't alone, and what she had promised him was no salvation. As days bled into nights, and nights into weeks, the Duke's obsession grew. The castle, once a symbol of his family's power, now stood as a prisoner tomb. Its walls closed in on him, suffocating him with the weight of centuries-old secrets. Alistair's body began to wither. He no longer slept, no longer ate. His face grew gaunt, his movements erratic. Servants whispered behind his back, but no one dared confront their master. The Duke was untouchable, powerful. Yes, but also a man lost to the darkness that consumed him. One storm-lashed night, when the wind howled like the cries of the damned, Alistair sought to end it all. He would confront the spirits in the East Tower, make them understand that he would no longer be their prisoner. The curse must end. But what he found in that tower was not freedom. It was a final, terrifying truth. Within the chamber, the spirits waited. Isabella stood before him, her ghostly figure now transparent, her eyes hollow and wide with longing. Behind her, the others emerged from the shadows, figures of both men and women, their faces twisted in eternal agony. "You cannot escape us," Isabella whispered, her voice cold and hollow. "We are the price of your family's ambition. And now you will join us." Alistair's eyes widened in horror. He had thought he could sever the ties, rid himself of the curse. But the spirits, his lovers, had always known the truth. There was no escape. As he fell to his knees, his hands reaching for the stone floor, he felt the cold embrace of the spirits close around him. They pulled him down into the depths of the earth, into the cursed tomb that lay beneath the castle. The castle remained silent after Alistair's disappearance. For years, no one dared to approach Lichtenstein Castle. Whispers of the Duke's madness, of the spirits that haunted the East Tower, travelled through the villages below. People spoke of the strange lights that flickered in the tower windows during stormy nights, of ghostly figures that roamed the halls, and of the cold wind that seemed to sigh through the cracks in the castle walls, carrying with it the voice of a man once mighty, now reduced to a lost soul. Time passed, and Lichtenstein Castle, like many others, was eventually abandoned. It stood as a crumbling monument to a cursed legacy, its once proud banners now tattered and weathered. The stone walls, stained with the passage of centuries, crumbled beneath the weight of untold tragedies. But the curse did not die. It lingered in the air, a thick, oppressive fog that clung to the stones of the tower and whispered to those who dared to listen. It waited for another soul, a curious traveller, a desperate noble, anyone who might stumble upon the secrets buried within the castle's walls. And then, in the year 1590, a young historian named Amelia Worf, known for her fascination with ancient curses and the supernatural, ventured into the Alps to uncover the truth behind Lichtenstein Castle's dark history. Emilia had heard the tales, the stories of the Duke's madness, of the ghostly lovers who had consumed him. She was determined to uncover the truth, to discover the hidden forces that had driven the Duke to his untimely demise. Armed with little more than her notebooks, a few scholars' texts, and an iron resolve, she journeyed alone into the heart of the mountains. When Emilia first arrived, she found the castle in a state of ruin, its stone walls draped in ivy, the once majestic towers now leaning toward collapse. Yet there was an undeniable presence, something in the air that made her skin prickle, her heartbeat quicken. As she entered the castle, she could feel it a heavy weight, as though the walls themselves were watching her. At first, she explored the outer rooms, but the deeper she ventured into the heart of the castle, the more she felt an overwhelming sense of dread. The air grew colder, the silence deeper. It was as if something or someone was following her. Her heart raced as she approached the East Tower, the place where the Duke had met his doom. The moment she reached the door to the Duke's chamber, Emilia felt a chill unlike any she had ever known. It wasn't the cold of the mountain, it was something far more ancient, something that seemed to draw the warmth from her very soul. She opened the door. Inside, the room was as it had been left, furniture overturned, the remnants of a life once lived. But Emilia's eyes were drawn to the mirror. It stood in the corner, an ornate frame carved with strange symbols, and as she gazed into it, she saw something moving in its reflection. A shadow, dark and shifting, hovering behind her. Emilia spun around, but no one was there. Still, the feeling lingered, thick and oppressive, like a hand at the back of her neck. Suddenly, the whispers began. The same whispers Alistair had heard all those years ago. Emilia. The voice was sweet, melodic, yet chilling. Come closer. The historian stepped back, her heart pounding. The voices continued to call her, pulling her deeper into the room. And then she saw them. Figures emerging from the shadows, their faces pale, twisted in expressions of longing. They were the lovers, just as Alistair had described men and women, their forms barely solid, as if they were caught between worlds. Their eyes locked on Emilia, hungry, their mouths parted as though they had not spoken in centuries. The air grew thick with their presence. The walls seemed to close in on her, and Emilia realized too late that she had been drawn into the same trap that had claimed the Duke's soul. When the search parties arrived weeks later, all they found were her notes scattered, torn, but still legible. Emilia had written about the Duke's curse, about the spectral lovers, and the dark pact that had bound them to the castle. But there was no sign of her. The castle stood empty, as though it had swallowed her whole. And yet, in the dead of night, those who passed near the ruins of Lichtenstein Castle still speak of a voice that calls out from the tower. It is said that the lovers still roam the halls, their presence forever entwined with the fate of the Duke, the legacy of Alistair, Lady Isabella, and their ghostly lovers endures. Lichtenstein Castle, now in ruins, remains a silent testament to the power of desire, of ambition, and of the price that must be paid for meddling with the forces of life and death. But what truly happened in those cursed bedrooms? Was the Duke's downfall a result of madness, or had he been seduced by something darker, something ancient? And what of the others who have entered the castle since? What is it about Lichtenstein's cursed walls that calls out to the living, and why does it still haunt the dreams of those who dare to seek its secrets? We may never know, but one thing is certain. Those who venture into the depths of Lichtenstein Castle find that some curses never die. They live on, in the whispers, in the shadows, in the night. The Duke's fate, sealed by his obsession with the ghostly lovers, serves as a chilling reminder. The pursuit of forbidden desires comes at a cost. Alistair, a man of immense power, was brought low by his own greed, by his insatiable longing for something beyond the mortal realm. The spirits of his past, once lovers, became his tormentors. In seeking to satisfy his darkest cravings, he allowed them to enter his life, and they tore his soul apart. In the end, what price would you be willing to pay for the promises of eternal love? Perhaps the real question is, what happens when you call the dead into your life? And they answer with a hunger that can never be sated. As Lichtenstein Castle fell into ruin, its legend grew. The Duke's name faded from history, but his fate lingered, carried by the wind, whispered through the corridors of the castle, and passed down through the generations. But even now, centuries later, the true story remains shrouded in mystery. What happened to the souls that were trapped in those cursed rooms? Were they merely echoes of the Duke's desires? Or were they something more, something born of an ancient, darker power that had seeped into the castle's very foundation? There are those who believe that the spirits of the Duke and his ghostly lovers still wander the tower, waiting for a new soul to claim. Some say the whispers call out to travelers, to those who dare to uncover the castle's secrets, promising them the same fate that befell Alistair. Others believe that the curse has been passed on, spreading to new lands, to new castles, to new lives. But no one has ever returned from Lichtenstein to confirm this. Perhaps the most chilling question of all is whether the Duke ever truly died. Did Alistair's body rot in the depths of the tower, or did his soul, like those of his lovers, become something more, something not quite living, not quite dead? Some say that in the quietest hours of the night, you can still hear his voice calling out from beyond the grave, lost in a world of eternal longing. In the end, the Duke's curse was not merely his own. It was the curse of all who succumb to obsession, the price of power, the toll of unchecked desires. A warning: to meddle with things beyond the realm of the living is to open doors that may never close. And once you've made that choice, there is no going back. There are those who claim to have visited Lichtenstein Castle in recent years. Some have gone out of curiosity, others driven by the need to uncover the truth. Few have returned. Those who do speak of strange occurrences of mirrors reflecting not their own image, but that of the Duke of Cold Draughts, that seem to carry whispers of forgotten names, and of faces that sometimes appear in the castle as windows, staring out at the world with hollow, unblinking eyes. But perhaps the most disturbing thing of all is the sound. A sound that is said to echo through the empty halls on nights when the wind howls, just right, an unmistakable sound. a soft, longing whisper, calling out from the shadows. Come to me. Some curses are born from the desires we can never truly control. When power is obtained through dark means, when love is sought in the realm of the dead, there is always a price to be paid. The greatest danger lies not in the moment of temptation, but in the moment of realization, the realization that the thing you sought, the thing you thought would bring you peace, is what ultimately consumes you. In the end, the spirits of the past are not so different from the desires that haunt us all. They linger, they whisper, they pull us into the abyss, and if we're not careful, we may find ourselves joining them.